Good evening, everyone. It is 4:32 Pacific time. I think that would make it 7:32 Eastern time. And this is a training put on by the Mises Caucus. Thank you very much to the Mises Caucus and Amy Lepore for putting all of this together. I've been asked to provide the training tonight. It is an honor for me. My name is Richard Burke. I'm the Executive Director of the Western Liberty Network. Western Liberty Network is a nonprofit 501c3 nonpartisan organization that trains limited government grassroots activists how to be candidates for local office, how to serve once elected, how to be a skilled citizen lobbyist, and how to be a trained and skilled campaign volunteer who can support the campaigns they care about. Now, I'm very happy to be speaking to you tonight because if you can see by the things behind me on the wall here, I actually am a libertarian myself. I've been a registered libertarian since 1990, former state chair, former LNC member. I ran for governor in 98. I've been elected to local office 7 times, and I currently serve on the Oregon Government Ethics Commission, the state ethics board. And so I do a lot of training for a lot of different limited government organizations, and it is always a treat and an honor when I get to speak to my own kind, so to speak, in the libertarian world. I want to tell you just a little bit about Western Liberty Network before we dive in. I want to do this so that you can see all of the resources that are available to you. Tonight, the training is going to be on canvassing your neighborhood, but I'm going to share the screen right now. We'll see if I can make this work properly. Okay, there we go. What you're looking at now is the homepage of the Western Liberty Network website. We have a lot of resources here. Check this space up top. We do regular training, usually on Saturdays at 1 o'clock. This is the last one. We haven't posted the new one yet, but you can join by clicking on Zoom. They're free. It's at 1 o'clock on Saturdays, and you can get information there. There's also our annual conference on February 3rd. Invite you to come to that. Stephen Moore, economist, who describes himself as a libertarian all the time, will be one of our featured speakers. More featured speakers to appear as you watch this space. Going down a little bit, you hear some information, or you can see some information rather, about things that Western Liberty Network is doing. There are some speeches there that are really interesting. One of them is by a guy named Andrei Ilyaronov, who used to be Vladimir Putin's economist before he defected to the West. He's a really interesting guy, and if you scroll down, you'll be able to see that. Now, if you like what you get today, click on the training tab. At the top, it'll show you the training that we provide. And then there are a bunch of campaign training documents. We have training documents on all of these topics. The one we're going to be doing tonight is canvassing your neighborhood, and I'll make that document available, but you can download it at any time by just finding it on this website here, and you'll be able to download, like this one, how to get out the vote with your individualized GOTV campaign. Click on that, and you'll get the sheet on that you can download and print as you like, distribute it. We don't use, none of these are copyrighted. We want them to get out to the information. And if you want to see all of our documents with one click, down here at the bottom, you can click that one. And then scroll down a little farther, some of our Saturday live, Zoom trainings, you can go down. I provide a lot of the trainings, but not all of them. We have sitting state legislators and experts in their field providing training, and that is all available to you free of charge. No problem there. Of course, I wouldn't be a good executive director if I didn't show you our support page. If you like what we do and want to make a tax-deductible contribution, you can do it at the support page. But that is not what I'm on here to do tonight. So what I'm going to do is stop sharing the screen. I've introduced myself. I've introduced Western Liberty Network. I have a request from Craig Caldwell. Could I please add the link to the chat? I don't know how to do that, but I'm certainly open to doing it. And there it is. Tommy Lee to everyone provided the link. And so, yeah, that's great. So anyone that wants to link to that, by all means, go to. Thank you very much. We've got an emoji. Awesome. Fantastic. So this is the first time I've done it this way. So I hope you'll forgive me if I'm a little bit less than fluent. What I would like to do at this point is honor a request made by Nathan Madden, who's on the call right now, and ask if there are any candidates who would like to introduce themselves.
Well, since I made the request, I guess I'll start. My name is Nathan Madden. I am a candidate running in Arizona for state representative in Legislative District 25.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Any other candidates on here?
Yeah, I might as well go. Oh, what do you got?
Go ahead.
Is that Drew Mercer, I see?
Yeah, I think Clinton's trying to talk right now, though.
I can wait.
Okay, Clinton says he'll wait, so go ahead. We'll do Clinton next.
Okay. Great. This is Drew Cipridelli, and I'm running for Mercer County Constitutional
Excellent. Thank you for putting your name up there.
Sheriff. My election is 7. Early voting starts September 20. So coming up quick.
Okay, very good. Thank you for putting yourself on the line. You know, when the Constitution Convention was over, you've probably all heard the story
Pleasure.
of Ben Franklin coming out and a woman asking if we had a republic or a monarchy. And he said famously, a republic, if you can keep it. That's a direct challenge to us to take responsibility for our own governance. And all of you who are candidates or helping candidates are really stepping up to the plate in that regard. And I thank you for that. Clinton, you're next.
Yes. Well, I don't even know how to enable my video, but I'm running for District 3 Alderman of Savannah, Georgia City Council.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Any other? Craig Caldwell.
Yeah, hi, I'm running for Elmira City Council District 6 in Elmira, New York.
Okay, very good. So we're pretty much coast to coast tonight. Portland to New York. We've got the coasts covered. Any others? Okay. We've got Clinton Coward. I see your face now. Thank you. Love to see all your faces if you're inclined to show them. You know, if I turned mine off, you'd have something boring like this, you know, so we're not going to have that. I think I'm back. Okay, very good. So what we're going to talk about tonight is canvassing your neighborhood. As a candidate, this is very, very important. You've got to shake hands. You've got to knock on sometimes thousands and thousands of doors. It's also important to make sure your volunteers are knocking on doors and that you have volunteers knocking on doors. A lot of times, libertarian candidates are underfunded and resourced, and you've got to compensate. And canvassing your neighborhood is very, very important to that. Now, it seems obvious, but a question to begin with: what is canvassing? Canvassing has been something that has been litigated over and over again as people try to limit it and others try to expand it. And so there are 3 things that the courts have said canvassing includes. One of them is collecting voter data. If you want to do ballot integrity work and you want to verify information at the door, that is fine. You can certainly do that. Discussing issues and standpoints, that's, you know, pretty obvious. I think most of us have done that. Another is to convince swing voters or any voter to vote for you or for or against any ballot measure. Those are all things that have been litigated to constitute canvassing, and it is a protected First Amendment right. One thing that you will run into is political canvassing soliciting? The answer is no. The courts have ruled that you have a right to knock on that door. There are some limitations I'll go over in just a moment, but it is not soliciting. Soliciting is when you are asking for something other than a person's time to do canvassing work. If you're selling vacuums, you are soliciting. If you're raising money for some organization, you are soliciting. But canvassing is not soliciting. And the case that decided that was Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of New York versus Village of Stratton in 2002. So there are some ramifications here. If you are going onto a property and you see no soliciting, you can knock on the door and go onto the property. Now, a lot of people don't colloquially know the difference between soliciting and canvassing. And so what I advise people to do is, if it looks safe, if there's not a rabid dog between you and the door and you see a no soliciting sign, go ahead and knock on the door. If someone comes out and says, "Oh, didn't you see the sign?" I recommend that people say, "I'm sorry, sir, I'm not soliciting. I'm canvassing, but if you wish, I'll leave right away." You know, that shows that you're respecting their property rights. And they might ask, "What do you mean you're not soliciting?" And then you can say that, you know, you're not asking for money, and that asking, you know, for someone's time to discuss politics is ruled by the courts to not be soliciting. But again, if you want me to leave, I'll leave immediately. Most of the time, people will say, "Well, what do you got?" Once in a while, they'll ask you to leave. If they do, respect that. But most of the time, they'll say, "What do you got?" And there you've got an open door. Now, if it says no trespassing, you can't go onto the property. If it says no canvassing and it's an individual residence, you can't go onto the property. Okay, it's a little bit confusing. An individual residence is treated differently than like an HOA or a gated community or an apartment complex. An apartment complex cannot stop you from canvassing. So if you see a no soliciting, no trespassing, or no canvassing site, you know, as you enter a gated community or you enter an apartment complex, they don't have the right to bar you from that. Now, if you're going door to door to individual apartments, and the individual apartment says no canvassing or no trespassing, stay away from that door. Okay, so individual residences can put up signs to demand that you not canvass them or you not trespass. But HOAs and apartment complexes and gated communities cannot. That is a First Amendment protected right. Let's see. Yeah, there are a couple of court cases there. Lovell versus the city of Griffin, Georgia in 1938, and Citizen Action Coalition versus the town of Yorktown, Indiana, 2014. Now, to avoid snags, if you're going to talk to an area, if you're going to knock on doors that's in a gated community or an HOA, or if you're going to be an apartment complex, it's good to contact the manager of those properties and let them know you're going to be there, and let them know that it is a protected First Amendment right. And if you think you're going to have trouble, call the police ahead of time and let them know what you're doing, and let them, you can cite these court cases if you want to, and avoid problems. So if a manager comes out and says, "You can't be on this apartment complex, there's a no soliciting sign," it's perfectly legitimate for you to say to them, "I'm not soliciting, I'm canvassing. It is a protected First Amendment right. If you want to call the police, you can, but I do have the right to do political canvassing on this property." Are there any questions so far? Okay.
I have a quick question about these court cases.
Yeah.
Were these ruled in district courts, or was this ruled by the Supreme Court?
These
'Cause
are US Supreme Court rulings.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And obviously you fill up yourself. I'm going to send you a file, if I can figure out how to do that. That is our training sheet that has these court cases included. So I'm going to try and send you this through the chat window, but you can also get it off the training tab of the westernlibertynetwork.org website. But here it is. I think I sent it correctly. And so you can print that out, distribute it. You can show it. I mean, it doesn't have the force of law, but you can show it to a manager if you want to. Most of the time, you're not going to have these problems, but I want you to be aware of them. Most of the time, if you're going door to door with homes, that's fine. Let's see, I think we went through all of that. Let's see what's in the chat window. Drew, I think you need to mute yourself. There is a county-run low-income apartment building that doesn't allow political canvassing in my district. Well, they are acting illegally. Okay. You can talk to them. I would recommend that you talk to them first, cite this court ruling. And if there's a problem, call the police and let them know what you're doing. And, you don't want to spend all your time fighting with the police, and you don't want to spend all your time fighting with the managers of apartment buildings and such. But, there are votes there. And if you want to get them, you have to canvass them. And it is a First Amendment protected right. How can you canvass an entire county of 150 homes effectively? How do you plan your route? How do you know which doors to knock on? Are there apps available through this or any other organization? I don't know of any apps that'll tell you what the best ones are, but I will tell you that there are some resources. If you get a map of your district and you then go to the US Census Bureau, you can get information about the district, almost house by house, certainly precinct by precinct. And you can get information like income, education. There are a lot of various demographic axes that you can do searches and overlays on, and you can use your own judgment based on your platform, what issues are hot in your area, to determine what are the best ways, where you're going to have most fertile ground, and focus on that. The general rule of thumb is to focus on your base first. Make sure you've got your base secured. Once you've got your base secured, then expand out and try and expand your base. This is all going to be very helpful to you as you decide how to deploy your time. Now, if you have a really big district, and I understand that, when I ran for Tualatin Valley Water District Board of Commissioners, our constituency is about 250,000 people. There was no way I could cover everybody. And I did have some volunteers, and there was still no way we could cover everybody. So what we did is like I said, we looked at various demographic information and tried to determine where our message would be best received. And after we did that, we did not try to hit every house. We would hit 10 houses in a neighborhood and move around a bunch of different neighborhoods. And if you did that, what you would find is you would get your message more widely distributed. Sometimes neighbors talk, when they meet with other parents at soccer games or school functions or club meetings, whatever it is they do, neighborhood association meetings, they talk. And if you weren't able to hit every house, you might have 2 people that met you and they're talking to a group of 10 people, and just, there's a way to, lots of ways to spread yourself out. We have a whole bunch of trainings to deal with this. How to run your own earned media campaign to get your message out there if you're not able to knock on every door, for example. Take a look at those trainings, see what works for you. But that is one answer to your question if you don't have a lot of money. Let's see, canvassing. I downloaded the info. I'd be amazed if the cops wouldn't take their side. Well, you never know. It depends on the community you live in and how statist the police are. In my experience, haven't had a problem. Most police are responsive to court rulings. And if you cite the right, law, and, they might go look at it themselves, they might go talk to a couple of their bureaucrats. But generally speaking, if you are polite and you are reasonable and you tell the police what you want to do and give them the court sightings, they will typically not break the law. When that does happen, how far you want to take the conflict is up to you. Of course, when you're canvassing door to door, your job is not to get into fights with police. Your job is to, cover as many doors as you can. 150,000 homes. Well, that's a lot of people. That's probably about 300,000 people or even more. And it's New York. Well, that's just always trouble, right? So can't say much about that. Okay, so other things to know. Oh, yes, you cannot be required to give prior notice before canvassing neighborhoods. In some cases, as I've mentioned, it's a good idea, but you're not required to do it. Okay, you do not need a solicitor's permit. Court case there was Lovell versus the city of Griffin, Georgia, 1938. The U.S. Supreme Court has ruled that municipalities cannot restrict canvassing between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. on all 7 days of the week. Okay, I wouldn't want to canvass before 9 a.m. and I wouldn't want to canvass after 9 p.m. People are getting ready for bed, but the Supreme Court says that communities can restrict canvassing during those hours. But during 9 a.m. and 9 p.m., you are gold. And the court case there is Citizen Action Coalition versus the town of Yorktown, Indiana in 2014. It's amazing to me how recent some of these are. Now, remember that, and I'll repeat this a couple of times today, that your job when you're canvassing, whether you're a candidate or a volunteer as part of a canvassing drive, is not to persuade people, not to get people on board, not to recruit people, and not to socialize. Your job is to hit as many doors as you can. Okay. A lot of people, particularly libertarians who like to debate, fall into a couple of traps. Once in a while, you'll knock on a door and you'll meet somebody who is a libertarian or is a limited government activist, and you'll talk about the things that you agree on, and you'll really get into a groove and chat. And before you know it, 20 minutes is gone. Okay. Don't do that. You need to have your interaction be 2 minutes or less. The study here says 3 to 10 minutes, but I talk 2 minutes or less. I'm literally at this point, I'm literally like, hello, my name is Richard Burke. I'm with the Joe Blow for Congress Committee, and I would like you to have this, and then hand them something. Do you have any questions? Now, you might have a talking point or two, but look, you're looking to cover territory. And what people are hungry for are a couple of things. They want personal contact. Making eye contact with somebody is very, very powerful, even if you're not of the same ideological bent. The idea of a neighbor talking to a neighbor is very, very powerful. You'll note that in 1980, Ronald Reagan, most people didn't agree with him, but they voted for him. In I think it was 92, Clinton and Bush, Clinton didn't get a majority of people. Most people voted against him, but they liked him. I think the number one reason why you voted for Clinton was because he understands the problems of people like me. And Reagan, he just had this authenticity. People are starving for authenticity. They want authenticity in politics. They want a personal connection. Go there and make eye contact and just be authentic. If you read a script, I am here for Joe Blow for Congress. He has 3 talking points he would like you to know. 1, 2, 3, and even if you're not reading from a script, you're gonna sound robotic. This advice I'm giving you now is actually against the advice that other trainers give on this topic. But what I've realized is libertarians, underfunded, under-resourced, you're going to want to cover a lot of ground. So just be very brief and just introduce yourself, why you're there, hand them something. You should have something to hand them, and then thank them and wish them a good day. If they want to debate with you, that's another 20-minute loser, even if it's fun. A lot of us like to debate. But if you get stuck into a conversation like that, just say, look, I'm sorry, but I've got to hit a bunch of doors, before, this shift is up. But if you want to talk more, here's my telephone number. Let's meet next week for coffee. And most people, if they're reasonable, they'll understand that. But the idea is get there, meet the person, hand them your thing, get out, and then get on to the next house. That's what you want to do. Now, there are a lot of things you can do if they're not home. If they're not home, you can stick a flyer underneath the doormat. You can roll it up and stick it between the door jamb and the door handle. You can kind of wedge it into where the door closes against the door jamb. If it's a chain link fence, you can roll it up and stick it in one of the holes of the chain link fence. There are a lot of things you can do. You can leave campaign literature at a house when nobody's home. But one thing you cannot do is put it in a mailbox or anything that is clearly used as a mailbox. If there's one of those little boxes with a little hood that you open and you stick your envelopes in there and it's a mailbox, do not put it in there. The only person who's authorized to put things in and take things out of there is a US Postal Service worker and a person, who lives there, for whom the mail is intended. Do not put anything in anything that could be reasonably used as a mailbox. Technically, that's a federal offense. Technically, it's 20 years in prison. My guess is that nobody's going to go to prison, even if they're caught doing this, but it does make a campaign look bad. And you don't want to do anything that's going to reflect badly on your campaign, or then obviously you could get fined. You don't want to get fined. So be very careful. There are a lot of ways to leave literature, but do not leave it in the mailbox. Okay. So these are a lot of bits of information that relate to canvassing. And so I'm going to talk now about preparing to do the actual canvassing and actually executing on that project. Before I do that, are there any other questions? Okay, I don't see any questions. Is this of value to you so far? Okay, good, excellent. I don't want to waste anybody's time, so I'm glad that this is of value. Okay. First of all, if you're going to canvass, prepare yourself. Check the weather and dress appropriately. Okay. If it's going to rain, no umbrellas. You're going to need your hands free. You're going to need your hands free to write things down, or you're going to need them to hand things to people. Do not bring an umbrella if it is raining. Instead, wear a poncho or a windbreaker with a hood or something like that. Make sure you do not unnecessarily encumber yourself with an umbrella. Bring a backpack with water and some food, a couple of sandwiches. Bring some to share. What I notice is that a lot of canvassers get hungry after they've been in the field for a couple of hours, and it's very easy for them to say, you know what, there's a McDonald's a few blocks over here. Why don't we take a break and go to McDonald's and have lunch, and then we'll come back. Problem is, they never come back, and you lose a lot of time. So bring a sandwich, but bring a spare. So if you're with somebody and they're hungry, you can offer them a sandwich and a bottle of water. Make sure you have comfortable shoes. I have seen, God bless them, women in high heel shoes. And after about a block or two, they're like, oh, my shoes are killing me. I need to go home and change into some tennis shoes. That's great, but they don't come back. You lose time and they don't come back. So if you are a coordinator for a canvassing operation, make sure that everyone brings shoes that are good for walking. And if it's raining, water resistant shoes. If possible, wear a button or a badge on a lanyard for identification. If you say you're working for Joe Blow for Congress, the people who answer the door are going to want to know that you're not actually a 5-state axe murderer. Now, obviously, wearing a button or a lanyard is not proof that you are not a 5-state axe murderer, but is at least something that, suggests that you are who you say you are, and you're working for, who you say you are. And most people are satisfied by that. And that does a lot to let them know at a glance why you're there, even before they talk to you, and lets them know that you are not a 5-state axe murderer and that you're who you say you are. Now, make sure that you're equipped. Try to get a walking list that lists the people in the homes you are canvassing in the order on which they appear on the street. I am a big fan of paper lists, the old-fashioned kind that you can flip through, that come on tractor feed paper. It's been the fashion in recent years to have, a tablet or a phone and an application like that, and use this to do your canvassing on. I really don't like that. I like the paper method. And the reason why is because I typically only see this system work when you're dealing with a professional canvassing company that have the same technology. They've all been trained on that technology, and they've got someone to fix that technology if it doesn't work or it's not going right. What you will find if you try to use this software is that a lot of times you'll need to have a training session or two on how to use it. And if you have a training session or two on how to use it, not everyone's going to understand it. The people who don't understand it, they're going to be no-shows on canvassing day. The people who don't understand it will try to use it if they do show up, and they'll get things wrong. There will be problems like dead batteries. There'll be problems like bad cell phone coverage. There'll be all of these things. And you've got some people with Android, some people with iPhone, some people with this pad, some people with that pad. And you'll basically need a tech person to support all of the different versions of the software that's out there. These devices and software are great for reducing the amount of database entry work that the folks at the campaign headquarters have to do. But it typically cripples campaigns unless they are professional and trained on how to use these products. So I train people to ask for and get a printed walking list that says such things like name, address, party registration, in a walking list order. And you can take a pen and make notes. What's really great about these is, sometimes you can have at least 2 and sometimes 3 different flyers, one for Republicans, one for Democrats. For example, I worked for a guy named Tim McHenry in 1996. He was a big school choice guy. And I did some door-to-door canvassing for him. And we had 2 flyers. One of them was for Republican households. And it said things like, parents should direct, their children's education. And that government education was trying to indoctrinate our kids, that kind of thing. The Democratic flyer said things like middle class and poor kids should have the same choices that rich kids have, different messaging. And so we would look at the list and see if they were Republican or Democrat or something else, try to make a call, hand them the right piece of literature, and then make the pitch and go on our way. So have a walking list, and you can write on a walking list. You can take a pen and you can write things like, barking dog, don't come back, possible volunteer, wants to get involved, whatever that is. Now, the list isn't always going to be right. And you are sometimes going to get households where there is a Republican and a Democrat or other mixtures involved. That's okay. Don't worry about it. Here in Oregon, the lists you get from the Secretary of State are generally about 20% wrong. My guess is that most states, it's pretty similar. But on the other hand, the lists are 80% right. And I'm a big fan of saying, don't let the perfect become the enemy of the good. Now, another thing, make sure that you have your phone fully charged. Everyone doing canvassing should have a fully charged phone. If you're a coordinator, you're going to need to contact your canvassers in the field. Maybe you want to move them to a different neighborhood, because somebody didn't show up or whatever it is. If they need to contact you, if they run out of flyers and they need to get some more, that's fine. Make sure you have a fully charged cell phone. One of the things that happens sometimes is if you don't have a fully charged cell phone, people in the field will say, oh, darn it, my phone is dead. I've got to contact my kids and make sure they're all right. I better go home and check and I'll come back. Of course, they don't come back. So make sure that everybody involved is told to have their cell phone fully charged when they show up. Okay. Also, when you canvass, make sure that you canvass in pairs. You're not going to cover quite as much ground as if you go, one person hit this neighborhood, one person hit that neighborhood, or even in the same neighborhood. This person do the west side of the street, this person do the east side of the street. Don't do that, because even if you're not a 5-state axe murderer, the people behind the door might be a 5-state axe murderer. Make sure you're never alone. You don't know what you're dealing with. This varies, of course, based on the neighborhood, but make sure that you always work in pairs. Have your pitch ready. Okay. As I've mentioned before, am a big fan of essentially no pitch other than introduce yourself, who you're working for, hand them something, and then thank them, ask if they have any questions, and go on to the next house. I'm a big fan of that. Sometimes if they just meet somebody from a campaign, that's enough to make them vote your way if they're on the fence. So cover as much territory as you can. Again, always introduce yourself by name and tell the people who you are representing. I'm Richard Burke. I'm working for Joe Blow. He's running for Congress, and I've got this piece of information for you. Now, if you hand them the information, you extend it. If it's a door hanger, I love door hangers, but if it's a trifold brochure or whatever it is, just hand it to them. Just extend it outwards. Instinctively, almost everybody will take it. Okay. Just hand it to them and go with that. Next, very important thing, respect property rights. Use sidewalks anytime you can. A lot of homes, you know, they've got their yard and they've got a sidewalk. And there's, of course, the walkway up to the door. And then there's a little bit of grass. That's an easement, and then the street. Okay. Don't walk on the easement. Technically, it's city property, even though the homeowner is responsible for mowing the grass and taking care of it. And but most homeowners don't understand that, and they think that land is theirs. And of course, a lot of people maintain their yards. You don't want to walk on people's yards. People hate that, and it's going to make your it's going to reflect badly on your campaign. Now, there's not always a sidewalk where you're going, and there's not always a clear path to the door. But just do your best. You know, take a look at a piece of property and you know, make your best call as to how can I approach this house, you know, and respect their property rights as best I can. Most of the time, if you make a good faith effort, you're fine. But if there is a community that you're working on where there are sidewalks, go ahead and do the whole, okay, sidewalk, walkway. Then back up the walkway, sidewalk, walkway. Don't cut across the yard. Don't cut across driveways. People really hate that. You want to respect their property rights. And they notice those kind of things. One other thing you want to be very careful is what you say. If you're going to be working with a partner, you're going to have an urge to discuss what happened or what you think might happen. Okay, I've heard people say, you know, if they slam the door in your face, what an asshole, right? Or what a jerk, that kind of thing. Or, you know, that person's really great or whatever it is. Don't make any comments at all about your interactions with people. Save that for the pizza party at the end of the shift. And the reason why is because people have these wonderful things now called intelligent doorbells, smart doorbells. They have very sensitive microphones. Some of them can pick up sound from across the street. They are very, very sensitive. And if you start saying bad things about the people that you've spoken with, and it's captured, maybe not even at that house, but at a house across the street, if it's captured, you know, you might find that little video and audio clip on a campaign ad paid for by your opponent to show the kind of people that, you know, your candidate hires, right? You don't want to do that. So don't make any disparaging remarks about anybody you talk to, even if you think you're absolutely alone. Are there any questions so far? Okay. Very good. Keep conversation short. Again, length in conversation is death to a canvassing campaign. If anyone saw the movie Interstellar, you'll know they went down to this planet where 1 hour equaled 7 years, okay? If you've seen that movie, think about yourself on that planet when you're talking to that person. Your objective is to have a pleasant interaction and get out as fast as you can, because anything more, you're losing your ability to hit more houses. So just whatever you do, keep them all short. Now this one, if you don't take anything other than this away from this training, I want you to have this. One is, do not take anything that happens out there personally. I've worked with a lot of canvassers. One time a canvasser went out, first time, and just bad luck, luck of the draw, whatever you want to call it. The first person slammed the door in their face. The next one called them a Nazi. The next one called them something else. It was a bad experience. And that person came to me and said, Rich, I really support this campaign, but I didn't sign up for this. I don't want to deal with this. I'm going home. Okay. This person took it personally. It's understandable. We're human beings. We don't like to have doors slammed in our face, and we don't like being called fascists. Nobody does. But it's a challenge to not take these things personally, because if you do, you give people like that the power to silence you, the power to cancel you. Now, remember that people who do these things, they don't know anything about you. They don't know what your religion is, if you have one. They don't know what your belief systems are. They don't know how you treat your kids or how you treat your spouse or what's sacred to you or what hobbies you like or what sports you like or whatever it is. They don't know anything about you. Okay. You know, if my father or a good friend of mine were to say something really bad about me, I would take that to heart because they know me. Okay. But some random person out there who's just spewing hatred, they don't know anything about me. So, you know, I don't take it personally, because if you go to that fifth door and that sixth door, the next time you might find somebody who wants to volunteer, who's a great person, who's very kind, who offers you a bottle of cold water while you're out there walking around in the heat. You know, you're going to meet jerks and you're going to meet really nice people, and you're going to meet people that are like, meh, whatever. You're going to knock on a lot of doors where there's nobody home. But don't take it personally, because if you take things personally, you give other people power over you. And it's easy to say, you know I've seen it. You can tell by the facial expressions. When you say this in a training session, you say, okay, Rich, I get that. Don't take it personally. And it's easy to internalize in your head. But when you're actually at a door and someone swears at you, it's really hard not to take it to the heart. You've got to train yourself not to take it to the heart. And there's no way to do that other than to get out there, canvas, realize it's going to happen to you. And then when it's over, realize that, you know, you're still okay. Because what I've learned is that people who behave that way and lash out against people like you, it's not you that there's anything wrong with. What they do is really a reflection of something within themselves. And they are to be pitied, if anything. But don't take it personally. You know, I'll never forget, I'm going to tell you a personal story. It wasn't a canvassing story. It kind of is a canvassing story, but it's when I learned this lesson, and I learned it all the way. I was running for re-election on the Tualatin Valley Water District Board of Commissioners. It was my it would be my fifth term if I won. And, you know, in our state Libertarian Party, we had a factional fight. And someone in the other faction decided that they wanted to unseat me for this position. And they spent $12,000 doing direct mail pieces that were incredibly vile and negative. It's so bad. It was so bad that Professor Moore at Pacific University, who's often quoted in the local media, said it was the worst hit piece he had seen in 40 years. And I was visiting my parents in Minnesota when this thing came out. And I saw it, somebody emailed it to me, and the blood just rushed from my face. I'm like, oh my gosh, are people going to believe these things? This has gone out to 20,000 people. And then there was a second mailing that went out. I don't know if it was the same 20,000 or a different 20,000. But are people going to believe this? And to my astonishment, virtually nobody did. It became a national AP wire story for a day, because how often does an incumbent libertarian challenge a sitting libertarian in elected public office? That made it novel. The fact that it was so harsh, our local talk show, Mark and Dave on KXL Portland, had a whole show around it. There were newspapers that never touch water board issues that endorsed me on this case. Washington County Public Affairs Forum held a debate. I showed up, the opponent did not show up, But the point is, people saw this attack for what it was. If you're running for governor or Senate or Congress, people expect mud to be thrown around. But voters typically react very badly to negative campaigns for local nonpartisan office positions. And that would include, I would guess, races for sheriff and sometimes races for state legislatures. But my point is, don't take it personally. This isn't a reflection of you. It's a reflection of people that are behaving badly in an uncivil manner. Some libertarians are reluctant to knock on doors because they don't want to intrude on other people's lives. If you're a libertarian, you know that most people want to be left alone. And that's what we promise. Elect libertarians and we'll leave you alone. But it's not an intrusion to canvass. They can tell you to go away. You are offering them information that they can use or toss away as they like, information that will allow them to use their political power at the voting booth or in a mail ballot, depending on what state you live in. And in a self-governing society, that is critical. You're actually doing them a favor by offering them information that they can reject or not reject, or read or not read, but you are offering them information they can use to exert their political power in any way they choose. That is the heart of civic life. And it's not using force, it's not initiating force, it's not even responding to force. It is good civics. So don't be shy about doing canvassing. You're not selling vacuums. And I sold vacuums once and it's not fun. Okay. COVID is still an issue with some people. And it can be a real pain in the rear. I have some advice. You can use it, spindle it, or mutilate it as you think best. But what I recommend is that you knock on the door, and after you've knocked on the door or rung the doorbell, you and your partner step back a couple of steps. Okay. When they come out, you're not right in front of them. I know that 10 years ago, I would have knocked on the door and stood right in front of the door. Right. But in this case, stand back a couple of steps. Even though, COVID isn't the threat that it was, some people are still freaked out about it. And some people, even though they don't worry about COVID anymore, wonder what other bugs are out there and wear a mask everywhere they go. Some people still wear them indoors. And it's obnoxious, but they vote. And it's their property. And libertarians respect private property rights. If I own a house and I say, I will only allow people on my property who wear purple tennis shoes, well, that might be ridiculous and stupid, but it's my right as a property owner. And if you don't have purple tennis shoes, I can order you off my property and you have to comply. Okay. Same thing with masks. There are some people that are going to demand that you wear a mask. And what I advise people to do is not wear a mask, but have one in their pocket. And if someone, while on their property, makes a restriction that you have to wear a mask, pull it out of your pocket and put it on for the duration of the time you're talking to that voter. They will be, first of all, amazed that you actually have a mask. Secondly, they will be pleasantly surprised that you respect their wishes. So even if they are a screaming Democrat or a liberal, they might be inclined to vote for your candidate because they like you. People generally like people or vote for people they like. And if they like you, well, you may not be the candidate, although you might be. You will certainly represent that candidate and they will like you. So be politically intelligent, bring a mask with you. If they demand that you put it on, do it. Of course, as soon as you're off their property, rip the sucker off if you don't want to wear it. But you're on their property. And, there are some people that have reacted very negatively to this advice. And all I can say is that, look, the advice I give you and the training I provide you with is yours to use, spindle, or mutilate as you wish. And if you don't agree with me, don't do it. But that is my advice to you. And that is the training that I'd like to offer to you. The other thing is this. if you are coordinating a canvassing effort, do two things. One, have a meeting beforehand. If you're going to start in the morning, have a meeting in a donut shop and make that your headquarters through the day. Okay. You know, have a box of donuts for everyone to chew on. And at that meeting, before you start, make sure everyone has what they need. They have a backpack with a bottle of water and a sandwich. Bring a couple of extra sandwiches in case people forgot theirs. Do they have walking lists? Do they have flyers to hand out? Make sure that this is your place where everyone gets their stuff, and then you give them their assignments and you tell them to go and what time to come back. Okay. Now you want to make that the headquarters throughout your drive and keep somebody there, because folks will show up late. They'll say, I can start at 10, but not 9:30. And so you're going to have people coming in late. And there are people that'll say, I can work till 2, but not 3. And they're going to leave it at 2 and not 3. So you want someone at this headquarters all the time. And they need to have a cell phone that's fully charged so they can call the canvassers, see how they're doing, be available to them if they need help, reassign them if it's necessary to move them to another neighborhood, and those sorts of things. Then at the end, if you are a candidate or you're organizing a canvassing effort, at the end of the day, I would have a party. I'd have a pizza party or a party at a bowling alley where people can meet and celebrate their success, have some camaraderie, share stories, learn from each other, educate each other, encourage them to talk about their day and what they went through. Okay. These things are all very helpful. People for whom this experience is fun will come back and do it again and again. If you make it easy by helping them be prepared so they don't stumble over themselves, if you buy them donuts in the morning, give them what they need, thank them profusely, support them while they're in the field, bring them in, celebrate them at the end of the day, feed them some pizza, give them a chance to share their stories, give them a chance to build some camaraderie. It's going to be fun, even if it's a rainy day. And the next time you ask them to come out again, they're going to be more inclined to say yes. Okay. Are there any questions? Okay, no questions. Okay, I will ask you to tell me, I'm always looking to improve this training. Has this been useful to you? And is there anything you can think of that would help us improve these trainings or for this topic? Okay, nothing now, but if you think of something, you can email me. You can go to the contact webpage for Western Liberty Network and send me an email, or you can call me. My telephone number is 503-970-1876. I'll put it in the chat window.
I have one question.
Sure.
What's the best way to entice people or to recruit volunteers for canvassing?
Just a second. I'm not a very good multitasker, so let me type this in and then I'll
wait.
ask you. 970-1876 and RPB Central at gmail.com. Okay, I'm sending my cell phone and my email onto the chat window so you can contact me if you think of something later. Okay, so if I understand your question correctly, you're asking, how do you entice people to participate? Is that the question? Okay. Well, if you're going to do donuts in the morning and pizza in the afternoon, I would tell people like, well, we're going to do some political work, but we're going to have a couple of parties. We're going to have some donuts. We're going to have a bowling party. We're going to have some pizza, whatever it is. In between, we're going to do some door knocking and meet some people. Be a chance to meet other friends who are also doing canvassing. You know, make it a social thing. And if they ask questions about it, make it very clear to them that this is designed to be fun, but they're not alone. They're going to be with someone. They're going to be partnered with somebody. They're not going to be by themselves, and that they're going to be supported while they're out there. A lot of folks don't like to knock on doors by themselves. If they know they're going to be partnered with somebody, it takes some of the fear away. If they know they're going to be supported in the field while they're out there, you know, you're going to say, we'll provide you with everything you need. We'll give you a list. We'll give you a neighborhood. We'll give you flyers. You know, we'll tell you what to say. It's not anything complicated. And we're going to send you with somebody. And, you know, we're going to have a party beforehand. We're going to have donuts. And we're going to have pizza and bowling. It's going to be fun. You know, those are things you can use to entice them. They're not all going to go for it, but more of them will go for it than if you don't use those things. And like the training that I provided you with, and I think everyone has had access to the canvassing sheet. You know, it's not a guarantee that you're going to succeed in your election, you're going to win. But if you do these things, you're more likely to succeed. You have a much better chance of success. And one of the things I encourage candidates to do is to have secondary goals. Now, it sounds like at least one, and maybe all of you, are running winnable races, races where you can win the election. That's always your primary objective. I mean, when I ran for governor in 1998, I knew my chances of winning were extraordinarily small. Lightning would have to strike 10 times in the same place for me to win that election. But still, my primary goal was to win the election. Knowing that, I had secondary goals. I want to have another 50 media contacts. I want to develop a network of 100 donors. I want to develop a network of 50 grassroots volunteers. I want to do this, I want to do that, have all these secondary objectives. I want to build more party county affiliates, 15 county party affiliates where they don't already exist. These kind of things, secondary and tertiary goals, things that you can accomplish in a campaign and will have lasting value, even if you lose, okay? These are important because if you're running in a race where you're a long shot, most folks, and this goes to enticing people to participate, most folks are going to be less inclined to donate their time for what they think is a losing campaign than a campaign that they think has value. So if you tell people, I don't know if you've got a chance to win, you know, what you can tell them is something like this. You can say, look, I might win, I might not win. I'm running to win. But even if I lose, this campaign is going to be an investment in our party's future. We're going to develop, you know, 50 new donors, 50 new volunteers, 100 new media contacts, whatever metrics you set for yourself. And you can say, these things will be of value. You know, you might want to say, I want to register 100 new libertarians, whatever it is. These things will be of value in the future. You can use them to build your party. You can use them to run again for office and have a larger base to operate from. You can use them to support a ballot measure campaign, or to oppose a ballot measure campaign, or to lobby for a legislative initiative, or to work for a different candidate. These things are all of value. And so if you want to entice people to participate, you can say that as well. You can say, you know, I'm not just running to win this election. I'm also running to build our party. I'm also running to build an infrastructure that can support future campaigns. Those are the reasons why I want you to canvass. And that, you know, it works for donors. You know, if you say, I'm going to run for governor, they might say, fine, I'll write you a $500 check. But if you tell them that you're running with the idea of developing new county affiliates and media contacts and donors and volunteers, that $5,000 check can become a $500 check can become a $5,000 check, because you're doing something that people will be willing to invest in rather than a simple token donation to support you because they like you and they admire your moxie. So that's a long-winded answer to your question, but does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Very good. So that is all I have for you tonight. I'm doing a training again in a couple of weeks. But if you would like to stay in touch with Western Liberty Network, you know, watch the website, contact me at your convenience. We do regular trainings that you can log into. I encourage you to come to our February 2nd and 3rd conference. And if you do not yet have Western Liberty Network in your state and think it would be something that would be useful to limited government activists in your state, we are trying to expand nationally. We have an organization in Oregon, Washington. There is a small organization starting in Texas. And this last weekend, we have interest in Ohio and Kentucky. So if you'd like to start WLN where you live, contact me and let me know. Are there any other questions before we go tonight? Okay, well, thank you. God bless. Have a good evening and stay in touch. And thank you for all you do for Liberty. Take care.
Thank you very much.